channel, Edible Thoughts Makes. My name is Stephanie, and this channel is where I share with you my works in progress, finished projects, things I'm cooking up, books I'm reading, funny things my kids may say. My hope is that as you watch this episode and the previous episodes that you find some inspiration along the way. This is episode 90, and we are, I think, in the middle of August. Well, yeah, close to the middle, early middle part of August, year 2022. A big warm welcome to all of you here today. Thank you for joining me in this creative space. Oh my, it has been about 3 weeks since we last chatted, and there is so much I have to share with you. I'm not entirely sure what happened, but I had finished a bunch of things in July. Some things I couldn't share at the time because they were test knits that hadn't been released yet, and I like to wait until the designer releases their pattern before I talk more in depth about it. And so I had a couple things saved from that, and then once I finished things, I had so much inspiration to cast on a bunch of more things. And so I'm thinking today we'll see how far I get through the things that I want to share. I have a giant bag here on the side, and yeah, we'll see, because I made a list as I usually do, and there are 5 finished projects to share with you and possibly the same number of works in progress. However, I'm just thinking for some of the works in progress, I might just hold off and share at a future date. Yeah, we'll see where we go with this. It has been plenty busy over here. I cannot believe summer is already 2/3 of the way through. The kids will be starting school in approximately 4 weeks or so, and it's been a good summer. I mean, compared to a couple summers in the past, like I guess more closely to the beginning of the pandemic, where we weren't sure about how things were going. Some things seemed really scary, so we mostly stayed at home, and just being so unsure of situations and what they would be like, what we would be comfortable with. It's just been a different feel this summer. We just feel a little more open to trying different things and being more comfortable knowing where our boundaries are and what we are comfortable with, and just kind of keeping that in mind and knowing that we can change it up if we need to, and just kind of going with that and having open conversations as a family on what we are comfortable with, what we are not comfortable with, and just kind of going with that. And it has been really good. Weather-wise, I believe we're still in a drought, but it seems much more wet this summer than it did the previous summer, when we had like a stretch of 100-degree Fahrenheit like for a week. I don't think we've had that this summer yet, which hopefully we just don't have that this summer. But we've had a couple hot days, but it hasn't been in like long stretches, and that's been really nice. We've had a few summer thunderstorms, and yeah, the garden is thriving. It is so exciting. It is a partly cloudy day, so the sun is going to be coming in and out a lot, which, you know, it just is what it is, and I enjoy it. I think it adds variety. But yeah, the garden has been doing so well. I was thinking the other day, you know, if May, like early mid-May is usually when we're out of like a frost risk, and so we usually start planting early mid-May. And I feel like what usually comes up in May? Like the lilacs will be blooming, tulips and crocus and daffodils. So like by end of May-ish, that's usually when we have all those blooming. And then June, we usually have the iris and the peonies. Is it peonies or peonies? I've heard it both ways, and I'm not sure which way I like better. Peonies, peonies. Which way do you pronounce it? Or maybe it's regional specific. I don't know. So those are usually blooming in June, and then by July we usually have the lilies in bloom, and we've had so many different varieties this year. Some bloom a little earlier than others, and whatever doesn't get eaten we get to see, because the deer love eating lilies. Even like the deer resistant plants our deer seem to eat. But I thought we had maybe planted 8 or 10 different varieties, but we might have had like a dozen because there were yellow ones, orange, red, dark red, vibrant red, speckled, peachy, all different ones. And we even had like a mauve colored one. They've been so beautiful. So July would be lilies, and then August, it is the time for dahlias to shine and show off their colors. Dahlias come in so many different colors, and their petals, some are pointed at the ends while others are rounded, and some have so many different layers of petals. I don't know the, botanical terminology for any of this. I could describe it to you though. And some are like stiffer or more densely packed in a ball, while others just kind of flop all over the place in their glorious fashion, like a big party dress going to a gala or something. And we have different varieties that we've planted. I think some are from the year before, and then some are from this spring. And of course, when they're all in their like brown root form, I can't remember if, it's not a bulb, tuber? Anyway, in their brown form, they all kind of look the same. And so you plant them and then you get to see them months later, what comes out, right? So the ones I have here are, what are these called? Tyrell? Dinner plate dahlias. And they are this beautiful peachy color and then with a yellow center. And they are just so vibrant. You know what? I'm not going to move it because I'm afraid that my setup here everything's just going to fall, and I don't want to spill or break any vases. I have these hydrangeas here. Okay, so these are kind of cone-shaped hydrangeas, and these are the ones that I thought were pink, but then when they bloomed in July, they were white. So then I was all confused because I thought we planted pink ones. Well, guess what? As the summer has progressed, they have become more and more pink. So now these are even more pink than the little footage I inserted earlier in this video, because as the summer progresses, they're supposed to turn more and more pink. Maybe this one I'll pick up to show you. I think I can. Eek. Look at that. So the white part is a little green, kind of like our big Annabelles, which are these big balls of hydrangeas. I think I've shown them here on the video before. I might have shown them last time, I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't remember. But these have kind of a cone shape to them, and they're turning pink, and they are so pretty. I love hydrangeas and I love peonies because they're so low maintenance, and they are perennials here, so once you plant them, you can just pretty much forget about them. And I love this surprise. They're so beautiful. Okay, let's see if I can put them back without knocking everything over. How's that? Is that good? And having fresh flowers every day on the table or just really anywhere, it just brightens up a room and it makes you smile. You can't help but smile seeing the different colors and the different shapes, and there's so much inspiration in it, you know? Just seeing it, you think of different color combinations. I mean, nature makes amazing color combinations. It's not like we have to make them up. They're there. They're all out there for you to look at and find inspiration in. So, yeah, that's the update on the flower part of the garden. Vegetable-wise, we have more and more squash every day. The squash has just taken over. We tried a new area for the squash this year, and they apparently love it. So they're just going everywhere. And so we have a lot of yellow summer squash. The cucumbers didn't quite take this year. I have a feeling we didn't pick the best spot for them, but the yellow squash is doing really well. We also planted pumpkin, and there's one pumpkin. It's kind of a light white green right now, and it's our first year growing pumpkin, I should say successfully, because we've tried before and hardly anything happened, but it was not in a good spot. And so I'm not entirely sure what it's going to look like. Like, does it turn orange later? It's not a dark green, it's like a very light green, and it's kind of looking like some of the spaghetti squash that we planted last year, so hopefully I did not mislabel the seed bag. Well, if I did, it doesn't matter. We'll see what happens. So that's exciting. We have a lot of tomatoes growing, And we usually have enough that we can freeze some for the winter, which is so nice because having a taste of summer in our long winters, it kind of gives you a different energy, you know? So we like to freeze our cherry tomatoes, and what we do is we'll wash them, dry them, and then lay them flat to freeze so they don't all stick together. And most of them, a lot of times they'll burst just from the liquid that's inside the tomato and the ice expanding. But I usually use those tomatoes in like making like a pasta dish, or maybe it'll be baked, or maybe it'll be made into a sauce on the stove, and so it's okay that they burst. But the flavor is just so nice to have in the winter. Another vegetable or herb, spice that we freeze are the green onions. So our green onions grow really well, and actually I think they're frost tolerant, and we did have some come up in the same spot as we planted last year. So I did plant new seeds, but the previous year ones came up too, and they are huge. So we constantly cut them down because they'll just keep growing, and they grow, I mean, ours are probably, I would say, a good 2-3 feet tall. And then I just cut them down, and then I wash it, and then I chop it up, and then I freeze that too. And those are so easy to throw onto anything whenever, and from frozen because they thaw so quickly. So I've been starting to do that. I have frozen basil as well, and cilantro. I've grown a new batch of cilantro, but they're not coming up as quick as I thought they would. So I might need to replant that cilantro again. I've also replanted another row of radishes, and those are coming up nicely. So yeah, things in the garden are going well. So I don't think I mentioned how I usually organize my episodes here in case you are new here. So in the beginning you will have seen a vlog, and usually I have things recorded just throughout the weeks since I last came and chatted with you. So there'll be usually garden stuff, maybe some knitting in action, maybe some outdoor scenery, things like that. So I usually start with that. Then we usually catch up here, just a little garden and life chat and stuff like that. And then I go into finished projects, and then works in progress, and an eats and reads section where I might talk about recipes or things I've cooked up, books I'm reading, things like that. Links to things I talk about will all be in the description box below this video, so if you have questions about where to find things, I would always check there first. And sometimes I do miss things because I do talk about a lot of stuff, so if you don't see it there, please do ask in the comments below and I will do my best to answer. I do provide closed captioning, so just click on that CC button for that. And in the links, I do use Ravelry for my project pages, but I do put that as a separate section. That way, if Ravelry is a site you do or don't want to visit, that you know which ones those are. And yeah, I think that is it for that. I'll tell you what's in my drink. I made a blueberry lemon simple syrup, and I added it to some sparkling water, and there's a couple mint leaves in here from the garden, and there's ice. It is so refreshing, so good. Excuse me, burp there. So let's get started. Okay, so finished projects. I think we're gonna start with 3 sweaters. They were all finished in July, but maybe some weren't ready or finished by the time I recorded last, or 2 of them were test knits, so I just didn't talk about them at that last recording. So it may seem like I knit a ton in the last 3 weeks, which I mean, I did anyway, but these sweaters were finished in July. And you know what? I don't need to explain myself anyway. It doesn't really matter. It's neither here nor there. It's more so, sometimes I feel like, well, how do I explain? I mean, I don't have to explain myself, but what I'm trying to say is that a lot goes on, you know, behind the scenes, or when you're not on camera or something, you know, literally, figuratively. And it's just to say that I feel like some people get the impression that if you're posting all the time or sharing all the time, that you are more productive or making a lot more than somebody else, or there's all this comparison, and I feel like that's totally unnecessary. Everybody's creative energies comes in spurts and waves, and everybody has different amounts of time that they can or want to dedicate to whatever hobby or whatever craft or anything that they do. And granted, we all have 24 hours in a day to split however way we want to, have to, can. It doesn't, I mean, there's no race, right? It doesn't really matter. We're not being judged or pointed on based on productivity or number of sweaters, number of socks, number of anything, I guess, unless you do whatever for a living, but maybe things are a little bit different that way. But I just don't want anyone to feel like, oh, they're not a fast enough knitter, or they're not a productive enough knitter, or anything like that, because really that doesn't matter. Like it's not, it isn't why we make, or at least personally, it is not why I make. I don't have a number of sweaters that I want to knit in a year, a number of socks I want to knit in a year, because it doesn't matter to me. That isn't what's important to me. What's important to me is that when there's inspiration and I'm able to live in that inspiration and make something that is in my head and my heart come to life, that's what's exciting to me. That is why I make. I make because I feel inspired and I want to bring it to life and see what I can do, or how I can wear something, or how I can bring that joy to other people and to myself. And yeah, that's why I make. And a lot of times I make on the go or at home, or when I'm waiting for my kids in some practice or lesson that they have, or if I'm the passenger in a car, I always have my making with me. And depending on what kind of time I have, that kind of project has to fit into that. So if it is uninterrupted time that I have really early in the morning, that's when I might work on something more complicated that I have to be counting, or I can't be talking to somebody else, or can't be picking up and putting down something constantly. But when I'm out and about, I might pick a project that I'm only working stockinette in the round, like a sock or something I can easily pick up and put down with interruptions or whatever the case may be. Or maybe I only have 5 minutes here and there, I can get in a couple stitches. So that's how I use my time, and I have, you know, a little more flexibility, and I try to, well, I don't actively try to, but I do need to use my creative energy every day. It is what I survive on, it is what I thrive on. If I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm mad, any of the feels, I need to be making. And if I don't, that's okay too. But if I can, that's what works for me. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to throw that out there, put that energy out there, and let you know that I don't make in order to have content to talk about. I talk about things because I've made things that I want to share with you, and that is the energy that I bring and hope translates through the screen and through dialogue here, that is what I'm sharing with you. So on to the finished projects. Maybe we'll talk about, before we get to the one that I'm wearing, I'll talk about the one that I knit first. So we are talking about the Coloring Book Tee, and that is by Amy Scher. And this pattern came out, I believe, end of July, and it is fingering weight, and one of her samples is knit in Purl Soho's linen quill. And if you've been watching for a while, you know that I love linen quill yarn. And this is my first one. This is her view B. There's 2 views, and you can mix and match sleeve lengths, where the stripes are, body length, things like that. It's all written out for you in the pattern. So this one is knit to be 3/4 length sleeved, and it has stripes. My main color is in Linen Quill's Purple Smoke color, and my contrasting stripes are in Honey Pink. And I chose to modify the neckline. Instead of having a very close crew neck that is ribbed, I decided on this one to pick up and knit just a few rounds of stockinette, and then I did a more stretchy bind off. And I have a tutorial for that here on my YouTube channel that I'll link to. It'll either be up one of these corners or I'll have it in the description box below. And let's see, I didn't do any other modifications. She has this beautiful twisted rib detail that runs continuously from the cuff here, and it goes in the underarm, and then it goes along the side of the body. I mean, it's not all knit like that continuously, but would you call it a motif? The detail runs continuously, and then you have it along the side of the body and also in the hem. And I just love it. Let's see. There have been a couple changes since the test completed in the pattern. So the body length, I believe, is a slightly longer for the standard length, or maybe cropped, or both. I can't remember exactly. And I did knit my sleeve length just a few rows longer because I have longer arms in order for it to be closer to 3/4 length sleeve. Otherwise my ribbing would have been too close to my elbow, and then if I, when I bend my arm, I didn't want it to flare strangely there, so I needed to go a little past my elbow. And in retrospect, I probably could have knit that same, like finishing out this main color striping here, same on my body. So you'll see this body section of the main color is slightly shorter, and it's not by much, it's just a little bit. But that body part I had finished earlier and followed the directions in the pattern at that time, which I think have been extended a little. But on me, so knitting the standard length, she has it just slightly past the top of your hip bone. So for some people, that may sit more, not necessarily cropped. I suppose there's not really I don't know if there's a standard definition for cropped versus standard length. Anyway, you knit the length to what you want, right? And when I wear this, it is just slightly past my hip. I can wear it layered or not. It is very comfortable to wear. I can insert some photos of it here on the screen so you can see what it looks like worn over a dress. I thought about changing the sweater every time I showed, but I think that just might get annoying. I don't know. So I'm not gonna do that, but I really do love this. Oh, I suppose maybe needle size information would be important to you. I did get gauge using the needles that Amy used as well in the pattern, but your gauge may vary. Let's see. Oh, I knit size 2, also important to note. And I think that gave me, what was size 2? Maybe 5 inches of positive ease. I don't have it written down right here. My needles, I use size 2 for the ribbing, which is a 2.75 millimeter needle, and size US 4, which is 3.5 millimeter for the main fabric. And with size 2, I used about 700 grams of the main color. Oops, not 700 grams, what am I saying? 700 yards. So about 160 grams of the main color. And for my contrast color, I used about 27 grams, or about 120 yards. And yeah, I love it a lot. It's very comfortable. And then, I loved it so much, I decided to knit a second one. So my second one, I knit size 1 for, I think, 2 inches of positive ease, and I knit view A. So I knit the cropped version. Oh no, I didn't knit the cropped version. I knit the short sleeve version, standard length, omitted the contrast striping that she had in the ribbing, and I knit it all in one color. I used the same needle sizes as before, and I knit this in Pearl Soho's Santalina, and that yarn is a 70% organic cotton, 20% bamboo, 10% hemp. And it came in 328 yards for 100 grams, and it was my first time working with this plant-based fiber, and it was really comfortable on my hands, and it blocked out really nice. I will say that when I wet blocked, it stretched quite a bit, and then so I did throw it in the dryer on low for a little just to kind of tighten it back up, and then I did iron it because initially some of the stitches had looked a little wrinkly to me. And then I modified this neckline as well instead of doing ribbing, because I don't like super tight, close crew necks, especially if it's going to be a summer or lightweight tee. So I just did a crochet slip stitch edging, and I did it wrong side facing so that the V's from the slip stitches would go in instead of out. I don't know why, it's just personal preference. I just thought I would try it that way. On the other ones that I've done this reinforced neckline, I've done it with the V stitches facing out, and that looks fine too. Because this yarn is all plant fibers and has a high cotton content, I feel like it will stretch out. So before I did the neckline, it was very stretchy, just that cast on edge, and I felt like the front felt fine, but the back kind of flipped, like rolled out slightly, and I just thought maybe it needed that reinforcement. But I think if you like a wider neckline, you could probably just leave that out and just have it from the raw edge, and that looked really nice too. So I used the whole 2 skeins that I bought for the size 1. Yeah, I thought I really liked it. I'll stand up a little bit since I am wearing this one. It also has the twisted rib detail along the side that connects from the hem under the arm and onto the cuff. And something that I noticed, which again, I'm not super familiar with plant-based yarns, oops, my stuff is falling, is that there's less structure to it. It's very, very drapey, and having that detail on the side, I think actually, I don't know if it provides it more structure, but it might keep it from like ballooning width-wise. I don't know. It's just something I'm like maybe making up in my head. I'm not really sure. It's like something I'm envisioning that if it wasn't there, then maybe the fabric would have a tendency to like go out more just with wear and stretch, but maybe because there's those purl stitches there, that it pulls the fabric more vertical there. Not pulls it down or stretches it out, but like the way it reinforces isn't the word I'm looking for either, but it just changes how the fabric sits, I think. I don't really know for sure. This is me just like hypothesizing. I don't know, but I really like this tee. And I think, oh, the other thing that changed is there were more short rows, I think, added to the back. I don't know if it was for all the sizes, or maybe just some of the smaller sizes, but raising that back part, you know, sits with the human anatomy of just having a higher surface there. I don't know. Anyway, so that changed, and that's different from what I have knitted. And yeah, I think that is it for that. This has been really comfortable to wear, and I was curious, since it's a new to me yarn, a new to me base, how it would wear, and so far it has been great. And it's nice to have a plant-based fiber that's comfortable to knit with, comfortable to wear for a warm weather option. One more thing I think I forgot to mention is that this pattern does come in 9 sizes. So the finished measurements, the range is 34 inches to 66 inches, and the recommended ease for full bust is 3 to 5 inches and 7 inches from upper bust. And the gauge, 24 stitches by 32 rounds in 4 inches of stockinette, knit in the round with the main fabric needle. So yeah, that is the information there, and I highly recommend you check out this pattern. The third sweater I'd like to share with you is my second ranunculus, and this is by Midori of Knit Cafe Midori. And here it is. Is this the front or the back? Got it a little twisted here. There we go. Here it is. I really wanted to knit one in this beautiful moody green, and I followed instructions for size 1, which if you use her gauge of 16 stitches for 4 inches, that finishes at 46 inches for a chest circumference, and on me that would be 14 inches of positive ease. I did not want that much positive ease, so I actually used, I think, the same needles that she called for, but I finished at a different gauge. So then, I don't know if I have a blocked number here. I don't. But I will tell you that when I finished, my chest circumference here under the armpits is 41 inches, and then at the bottom is 39 inches, because I did do some decreases in the waist to bring it in a little bit so that it wouldn't flare out as much, and I'm really happy with it. So I followed the yoke as written, and I didn't follow the sleeves as written. I did kind of elbow length sleeves. I think they're just past the elbow, and I don't believe I did any decreases in the sleeves. I'm looking at my notes here. But the yarn I used is the Yarn Collective Fleurville 4-ply in 100% superwash merino, and it is 382 yards for 100 grams. And I held it double. So it probably came out to be like a heavy worsted or Aran weight with the two held together, and I ended up using 415 grams. Nope, never mind. That's what I started with. I ended up using about 325 grams, and that equates to about 1,245 yards. And let's see, where does it come down to? I don't have any photos of me wearing it yet. It's been too hot to wear an Aran weight sweater. But I'm gonna stand up here. So here's the top of my hip, and it's several inches, maybe, 3 inches past the top of my hip. So it's going to be a great one that I can wear just with regular pants or high-waisted pants or over a dress when the weather is cooler. And the reason I used this yarn was when I had purchased it a couple years ago, it ended up being more varied in the tones than I was expecting. So there was much darker greens and lighter parts of that green. And so I knew that if I held it on its own, there would be a significant amount of pooling, even if I alternated skeins. So a way to avoid that is to hold the yarn double. So when I hold it double, it mixes up those variances a little more, because I'm holding it with another yarn that has also those variances, but probably not in exactly the same spots. And also when I'm holding it double, some of the stitches you're going to have, the first yarn more in front, and other ones you might have the other yarn more in front. So that mixes it up as well, and it ends up dispersing the color variation or shade or tone variation a little bit more in the fabric. So then I did not end up alternating skeins at all. I just held two together. And I think at one point I might have cut one of them and then just joined another one, so that when I would run out, that I wasn't just starting out new with two brand new skeins instead, just to kind of mix it up a little bit. So yeah, that is my second ranunculus. I have 2 pairs of socks to share with you today. This pair here I finished in July. These are socks for our 9-year-old who will be entering 4th grade this fall. I can hardly believe it. These socks I've knit on through the summer. I think I cast them on end of May, and I finished them end of July. It took me about 2 months, and I wasn't going to finish them off actually until September, but just to clear my needles, clear my mind, I decided to go ahead and just finish them. The yarn is by Christina of Teal Torch Knits. It's a very highly variegated yarn with kind of a chartreusey neon yellow base color and just neon rainbow throughout. And what I did is I used ChowGoo 9-inch US 1 2.25 needles, which is my preferred sock needle. Feel the join between the needle and the cable is really smooth. The cable is memory free, so it doesn't have like weird angles or get stuck in any way, and it's a very smooth join. And I cast on 56 stitches because this is a light fingering weight yarn. So I did 56 stitches, I believe. I don't remember what my gauge is on this. 8.5 stitches per inch, maybe? I don't remember. But I did an old Norwegian cast on, which is my preferred cast on. It's also known as a German twisted cast on. Then I did a knit one, purl one, or a 1x1 rib for 30 rounds. And I did it, I did the cuff a little bit longer this time than I usually do. I usually do 20 because I wanted her to have the option of folding it down and have it be an ankle sock, which is so cute. I did the ribbing on the rest of the sock a little bit different than I usually do. I did knit 3, purl 1, and alternated that with a knit round. So the purl channels look a little bit different. And so I did that all around for the top part of the leg, and then I went into a shadow wrap heel, and I followed the tutorial by my friend Denise of Earth Tones Girl. And then once I finished the shadow wrap heel, I continued the patterning on the instep or the top of the foot, and then did stockinette on the bottom. And then there's my toe, where what did I do? I don't even know if I wrote it down. I knit a couple rounds before I started the decreasing, and I just did stockinette there, so I didn't continue the patterning into the toe. I alternated decrease and knit rounds until I had 20 stitches on tops, 20 stitches on bottom. Oh, and I switched to 32-inch magic loop for the toe, but I do the rest of it all on 9-inch circulars. And then after 20-20, I decrease until I have 10-10, 10 stitches on tops, 10 stitches on bottom, and then I graft those stitches together. And so I did knit it slightly longer than I think maybe she is at now, just so she can wear them a little bit longer. The ribbing or texture on the top also just gives it more stretch, and I think it turned out really nicely. I ended up using 46 grams of yarn total for her, and her shoe size, she wears like a youth size 2, if that kind of gives you a little ballpark estimate if you are knitting socks for somebody else who might have similar sized feet. Next pair of socks. Okay, here we go. Ta-da! These ones I finished more recently. This is using the June Sock Squad sock set by Candace and her team over at the Farmer's Daughter Fibers. And oh, the dyers for both this pair of socks and the other pair of socks are both BIPOC. And yeah, so I love supporting my fellow BIPOC makers. And this one uses, it's a sock set. So there's this contrast teal color. And then the main color is like a cream base with fuchsia, chartreuse, and teal and pink speckling. It's very fun and summery. I believe this one was called Zoo Town. This is their Highwood sock base, which is 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon. And it comes in 400 yards for 100 grams. And I used US 1 2.25 millimeter needles. And because this is not as light a fingering weight yarn as the other yarn I used, this one I know gives me 8 stitches per inch for my gauge. So I decided to change it up a little, and I did a 2x2 or knit 2 purl 2 ribbing. And so I cast on with the contrast color, do 1 round of ribbing. Then I cut my contrast color, join in my main color, I knit 1 round without ribbing, and then I start my 2x2 ribbing, and I did that for 20 rounds. And then for the leg, instead of doing 2x2 ribbing all the way around, I only did it on the first half of the stitches, and I centered it so that I have 1 knit stitch on each end of those instep needles, and then the 2 purls, and then 2 knits, and continuing on. And I did that for 40 rounds, and then I went into a shadow wrap heel, and then I continued the same on the leg as I did for the, or I continued the same on the foot as I did for the leg, where the ribbing's only on the top. And then after 70 rounds, I'm at about 7.5 inches from the back of the heel, and I cut the main yarn, and then I knit my toe. Just a little bit of contrast there. So I alternated knit even with alternating decrease rounds until I got 18 stitches on top, 18 stitches on bottom, decreased every round until I was at 8 and 8, and then I grafted the toe together. And this pair I think is going into my gift basket. So I keep a gift basket throughout the year, and as I am inspired and make things that need to go into my Christmas or birthday pile, I put those there. And that way, when the time comes, I am not as frantically trying to get things together. And yeah, that's just how I do things. So I do gift knit for some special people in my life. It takes a lot of work, a lot of energy, time, and yeah, so I like to spread it out throughout the year so that I am not as stressed out when the time comes. Plus, it's, you know, birthdays and Christmas knitting, so birthdays are all year round, right? So yeah, I just keep things going in there. How is everybody doing? I probably should have mentioned it in the beginning of the episode, but maybe you have figured it out by now if you are new here. In the description box below the video, I have timestamps for each section, and that just makes it a little bit easier, in my opinion, to find something, or if I'm not going to be watching an episode all in one sitting, I like it on other people's videos where I can break it up into different sections, and then it's relatively easy for me to go back and look for where I was at. We are on to works in progress now, and I always have several works in progress rotating at the same time. It is just how I work. I feel like it gives my hands maybe something different to work on. Sometimes things are in the round or knit flat or different needle sizes. They all feel different in my hand, and that way I can keep things kind of fresh. I don't want to get bored on one project, and this way, like I mentioned earlier, some projects are at different points of being able to just take out anywhere, and some are never at that point. And so I just want to make sure I have something that I can be working on at any given time and in any given mood. So we won't be talking about all my works in progress because some end up sitting on the side for a little while for whatever reason. Some have deadlines if they are test knits. And yeah, I'll just share a few of them that I'm more actively working on right now. Let's start with this one. Oh, and it's kind of a finished project simultaneously, a finished sewing project that I did. Oh, I love this little tote bag so much. If you have been here for a little while, you will know that I love sewing project bags. Now, I am not a business. I sew these for personal use only. I don't follow a specific tutorial. I will not be making a tutorial. I have been sewing ever since I was a little kid. My mom sews, my grandma sews, and yeah, I just love sewing. I have a quilt block here on the front. I believe this one's called an Ohio Star. And I had this floral fabric that, you know, this just reminds me of summer. And the blue gingham makes me think of eating outside. And I have this linen cotton that's remaining from a pinafore that I made for myself, like a gardening pinafore apron. And I love it. I love it a lot. And I use the same floral fabric on the inside for the lining. And so it's just like opening up to a beautiful garden inside when I pull out my project. So this project that I've housed in here, it is the Pop Crop Cardi by Amba O'Brien, and I'm knitting this for our 9-year-old. The pattern is not for children's sizes, it is actually written for adult sizes, but because it is written for negative ease, I am knitting the smallest size, which will give my daughter about 5 inches of positive ease, which is perfect. The size range is to fit 32-inch to a 60-inch chest circumference, but there is negative ease built in, so the finished circumference is actually smaller than that. And I don't think she lists those numbers on the Ravelry main page, so I won't be giving it away since it's in the pattern, and it is a paid-for pattern. It is a close-fitting garment, and it's designed to have the fronts open, but I will be putting in 2 buttonholes in the button band when I pick up the button band to knit it. And it is written for DK weight yarn, and I'm holding 2 light fingering weight yarns double, which I have found gives me a spot on DK weight. If I use a heavier fingering weight yarn, then I usually end up closer to worsted weight. But if I use the 463 yards for 100 grams yarn and hold that double, I end up with a pretty true DK weight. And here are the yarns that I'm using. So I have one that's more of a light gray base with some pops of pink speckling and blue speckling and some mossy green speckling in there. And I'm holding that with another gray base that has more teal pops and teal washes of color in it. So I'm holding those two together. Let me get out the yarn labels to show you. This is Less Traveled Yarn, dyed by Sarah. And the yarn colors, one was Wisteria, that was the lighter one, and then Ripple is the one that's more teal. And they're both part of her like enchantment collection of colorways. She has different colorway collections that embody like different feels and different inspirations. So I believe these were both from the enchantment collection. And I'm going to show you how the fabric is knitting up. Here it is. So the Ripple colorway that's teal has more heavy variegation in it, and by holding it double it breaks up any pooling. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong about pooling or bad about pooling. In a garment, I just don't prefer pooling. In socks and a smaller circumference, I think it's really fun, but in a garment, I just don't want like pools of different colors in different sections. So by holding yarns double, I feel like it breaks it up, just like I was talking about in my ranunculus. But also, when you hold different colorways together, you can create basically a whole nother colorway. So I feel like it's very calm and soft. I'm on the body section right now, so I have the sleeve stitches on short cables with stoppers. This has raglan increasing. And yeah, I'm just working on the body, and then the ribbing will be done in a different color. And I haven't quite decided yet, but I'm probably going to go with a teal or a gray. And then I'm planning on embroidering on some flowers on this top area of the cardigan when I'm finished. And the idea was to have it done around the time school starts, but I'm just shooting for somewhere in the month of September, so when it's starting to cool down, it'll be really nice to have a cardigan that she can throw on. Now, my yarn calculation here is that I should be able to finish out all the main color fabric with these 2 skeins of fingering weight yarn, because I will be shortening the body a little bit, shortening the sleeves a little bit, and yeah, I should be able to finish out all of this yarn. And then the contrasting color will be for all of the ribbing, so like the button band areas, the cuffs, the body, hem. And yeah, so that is what I'm working on. And needle size is 6 or 4 millimeters, and I don't believe she changes her needles for the ribbing. I might go down 1 needle size. We'll see. We'll see how I'll do that, because I usually do go down in needle size for the ribbing, but her pattern doesn't say to do that. Yeah, I might still go down 1 needle size for the ribbing. So that is that one. And let's go on to, we'll stick with garments. We'll go on to the next one. This bag, I think I sewed this one up last summer or last fall, I don't remember. I love this one. It's funny because this one, I don't follow a pattern, so my measurements were a little bit off, where it came out much wider and shallower than I was expecting, but I actually really like it. And in hindsight, I probably would have made the tote straps shorter just because of how the shape is, but it does go over my shoulder really nicely. I probably just would have shortened it up a couple inches, saved myself some of the webbing, but that's okay. It works out. And I had tried something new on this bag too, where I have that top, I don't know what it's called, but you have a top there so that when you cinch it shut, you're only cinching this fabric on the top instead of cinching your whole bag and losing space. And I didn't make this part big enough at first, so I had to join in more fabric on the top, but I think I joined it pretty well. It connects pretty well. Not that it really matters, but it was a good brain exercise for me. So this is actually holding a big worsted weight sweater quantity, so it works out pretty well, and it's pretty roomy. Let me see if I can take out the pattern there so I don't show you stuff in there, but let's see, without dumping everything out, here's all my yarn for this pattern, plus my work in progress, and nothing is squished, and I have pockets in here. I actually have another small drawstring bag in here. Oh, is this so cute? It's got a lot of squares on it in like a sagey green, a beige, a light pink, peachy pink, and some little tulip flowers. And on the back is this tulip flower motif in like brown and peachy pink. And the drawstring channel makes me think of knit stitches or leaves. I put this one in the bigger bag because the yarn I'm using, it's Knit Picks Wool of the Andes worsted weight in Oyster Heather. It's 110 yards for 50 grams. Online on their website, I feel like it looks a lot lighter, but in person, I feel like it's more of like a light mocha beige color and less of a cream, which is fine. I like this color. It is 100% Peruvian Highland wool. It is not superwash, and it comes in 50 grams, and I bought 10 of them. So I needed a bag big enough to hold 10 of them. And I pull from the outside, not from the inside, because when you get to the end, I just don't like how like wobbly and messy and potentially tangled it can get. So then I've been winding them into cakes so that I can pull from the outside without it being as messy. And so when I wind them, I don't wind them all at once. That's a lot of winding to do. So I just wind a few cakes ahead, and I've been keeping those in this bag so that things just don't get all tangled up. Can you tell I try to prevent tangles from happening? I just don't like untangling yarn. So I have that in here. Oh, I didn't even tell you what I'm testing. So in this beautiful bag, I am testing Amy's Anne's puffed sleeve sweater. So I think it was earlier this year I read through the Anne of Green Gables series by L.M. Montgomery, and it is a series I've read as a kid, and rereading it as an adult, I pick up different things and I relate differently. You're just at a different stage in life, right? So before, when I read it, my favorite book was the first one, and then now reading it, my favorites are more where when my age now is similar to Anne's age in that book. And she encounters things in life that I can relate to more easily now as an adult than as a child. And Anne is infatuated with puffed sleeves. It's a trend that's happening at that time, in that time period, and she just loves them. And who doesn't love a little fancy, right? And so, because this pattern has fun, fancy details to it, I wanted to keep it more simple as far as my yarn goes. So I have this neutral, and then I have started it. It does have raglan shaping, and because it's a test, I don't like to tell too much about it ahead of time. So basically, this is your sneak peek. I am using stitch markers by Reshma of Hello Lavender. This one was part of her affirmations collection. So this one says I matter, and it has some flowers on it. And then it came with these other ones. There's like a yellow rose. And what's on this one? Here's kind of a rusty, I'm trying to get it to flip over. Maybe I'll do it this way. Here we go. Kind of a daisy or echinacea looking flower. And then, oops, wrong way. And then there's a dark green leaf over here. And these are all polymer clay. There we go. And there's this beautiful detailing in the raglan shaping. yeah, I'm just working my way through that part, and I will pick up for the collar later. And the puff sleeves are going to be so much fun. And yeah, that's all I'm going to tell you. If you look for I think Anne's puffed sleeve hashtag, I'll put it up on the screen here. Some of the other testers have been sharing their works in progress, so you can see what other colors people are using and how it is looking up. Amy has shared a photo of what it looks like, so that part is not a surprise. I'm not giving away any secrets here, but if you are curious, then you can look her up and go find out more information about it as details roll out. I think it's coming out sometime in September, so yeah, keep an eye out for that. The third work in progress we're going to talk about today are a pair of vanilla socks. Now vanilla just means stockinette socks, knit round and round. I have this in a patchwork project bag. I think I made this one last summer, kind of at the end of summer into fall. So the back has these gold outlined orange fall leaves, and the front is mostly orange and pink and has this bird on it. I love it. It's so happy. So I am using Knit Picks Hawthorne yarn in Peach Melba for this one. It's 357 yards for 100 grams. So I would say it's getting to borderline sport weight. It's 80% superwash fine Highland wool and 20% nylon. And because it is a slightly thicker weight yarn, I am using slightly bigger needles. Let me just double check if I'm using US 2 or US 1.5. That part I don't remember. Let's see if I can read this here. I am using US 2. So that is the equivalent of 2.75 millimeters, and these are Chowgoos. Let me show you the yarn here. It's a cream base with, oopsies, with really pretty speckling in gold and orange. So because I like knitting my socks 2 at a time on their own needles, I wind up the yarn in 2 equal cakes when I start. And then on this one I'm doing a fun little contrast at the cast on edge as well, and that colorway is Compass. It's this beautiful gold tonal color. And I've used it in multiple projects. I think I just have a little bit left. Oh no, I have a substantial amount left. Yes, I've used this a lot. And I'm knitting them cuff down as I usually do. I did Old Norwegian cast on, 56 stitches, and I followed the same thing I did in my other socks that I finished earlier. And then I knit a 2x2 rib here, and then instead of doing a textured leg, I am just doing stockinette, so just round and round, blissful stockinette. And I hadn't had one of those on my needles for a while, just like a plain vanilla sock, and so I like having one kind of always on the go. It's just an easy one to pick up and put down. So that's what I've got. And I have light bulb stitch markers on the side marking every 10th round. It just keeps it easier for counting, because sometimes when you have kids around, you can't really count past 10 without being interrupted. So it just makes it easy to count in increments of 10 as it gets bigger, and then you make sure your socks are the same length. So I have my half and half triangles wrap that I have, continued to work on, and I'm not sure if I'm going to get it out to show you because it is more progressed than last time, but with it so big and you're just kind of working back and forth, it's nothing like much of a difference to see. I love the colors still, and if you are curious on the one that I'm currently working on, I've called it Garden Bouquet, and I started it I think end of April, early May. So any episode starting from there, you will have seen it, and I will have discussed details about it already. And since this episode is very long already, I think I'm just not going to share it this time. And my hope is to have it done sometime in September. So by the time I come back here next, which I'm guessing will be early-ish September, I will show it to you as a finished project, and I might even have my next one started already, and I'm so excited to show you that. So I think I'm gonna save the half and half triangles wrap for the next time. Okay, so as far as reading goes, I finished The 100 Secret Senses by Amy Tan, and I talked a little bit about it in the previous episode, and it was just so good. The way Amy Tan describes the scenery, sets up the scenes, builds up the characters, I'm just fully immersed in her writing. And I have to say that some of the things she talks about past and present norms and things in Chinese culture versus people who may be born in the United States but still relate to their Chinese culture, and like the things that you're always like wrestling with in your head on what's quote unquote normal, or what should be normal, or what makes sense. And for me, so I am Taiwanese American. I'm born in the United States to parents who are immigrants from Taiwan. Whenever we go back to Taiwan, I have this sense of like things mixed up in my head a little bit. Like this juxtaposition of what I feel or know to be one way and living in it in a different way. I can't exactly pinpoint it, but I get that feeling when I'm reading Amy's texts in The 100 Secret Senses, and I get that sense of like something's different and you can't quite explain it but you understand it kind of feeling. And she just has such a great way of explaining or describing things that at least personally I can relate to. So I highly recommend The 100 Secret Senses by Amy Tan. It was written in 1995, so it's been out for quite some time. I actually can't remember if I'd read it before, but even if I had, it was so long ago that I would relate to it totally differently now than I did before. The book that I've picked up and just started, so I can't tell you much about it, is The Sentence by Louise Erdrich. And I've been on the wait list for that book for months, and I'm so excited to finally have it. And I know that there are a lot of people waiting behind me, so I kind of have to read it relatively quickly. The kids have not been going to bed very early. It's summer, so the sun doesn't set until much later, although I have noticed that our days are definitely getting shorter. The daylight hours are definitely shorter. But because they don't go to bed very early, then by the time they actually go to bed, I am exhausted, so I don't want to stay up all night reading, even though I would love to. And then I try not to read in the middle of the day, because then I will be so immersed in it, I will just not do anything else, and I will just keep reading. So what I'm going to have to do is either read it quickly before I need to return it, or just go buy the book. So we'll see what I end up doing. But I just started it. It is really good so far. She also has a great way of getting you like really invested in the book, and I've loved all of her books that I've read so far. So I have no doubt that I will be fully immersed in this one as well, and very invested. Another book that I have been reading, I just started it with my daughter, is Where the Mountain Meets the Moon by Grace Lin. And we've read this before, but I'm not sure if my daughter finished it. This is our 9-year-old. And I read the trilogy, I think last year, maybe, I can't remember. It's a really, really good read. It's a children's chapter book, and if you like magic realism and things kind of all relating together, and if you like Chinese mythology, it's all in there, and it's so good. So I'm reading it with her, at night, at bedtime, and I'm sure we'll read it to our 6-year-old at some point too. It's not like she can't read it right now, it's that my husband and I have divided up bedtime duties between the two kids so that hopefully it, goes smoother and quicker. Otherwise, sometimes the kids just start playing or arguing or whatever else, and if we can just keep them focused doing what they need to do, it generally goes a little smoother. So bedtime stories are separate right now, and eventually we'll read it also to our 6-year-old. But that is where we are at with that. And as far as eating goes, I've shared a lot of vlog footage of eats. We've been making a lot of salads with all the tomatoes we've been picking and the basil we've been growing, and that's just so good to have pretty much every day. I could eat it every day. I have been eating it almost every day. And what else? I think I talked about this blueberry lemon syrup in the beginning, right? This episode has gone on for some time, so I can't remember. I'm pretty sure I mentioned it in the beginning. Oh, thank you so much, everybody, for sharing what you've been making in this warm weather. I have really enjoyed reading through all the things you have been making, and they give me good ideas as well. So thank you for sharing. I did mention that I wanted to talk a little bit about mental load and like the unseen to-dos and all of that we need to do simultaneously, whether you are caring for yourself or, younger children or an aging adult or really a myriad of different things. We always have so much on our minds that we need to do and need to accomplish for certain things to happen or to not happen. And yeah, I think I'll leave that whole discussion for another day because I feel like I've talked a lot today, and yeah, we're just gonna leave it. Leave it at that. Maybe we'll talk about that another time. So I hope you are doing well. If you are in the Northern Hemisphere, I hope that you are getting some cooler days in this summer heat and that you are doing all right. If you are in the Southern Hemisphere, I hope winter is going okay for you. Yeah, we're just gonna enjoy each day as it comes and as we get to, see the sunrise, enjoy the sunsets, and everything in between. So, cheers to being creative, and I will talk to you next time. Take care.